Next, we have a presentation from the Clerk and Register of Deeds Office overview with Madam Clerk Karen Spranger. Need a motion? Motion by Commissioner Tocco, support by Commissioner Leonetti. Floor is yours for a department overview, Madam Clerk.
Well, I can always turn it off.
That's fine.
First of all, there is a big process involved when you start collecting the data for doing a budget. And I want to compliment the finance director who is helping me through this process. And of course, all the paperwork that's needed will be filed on time by Friday. We're going to review that process in detail. So in case I forget anything, we will make sure I add it. Hopefully we can do some amendments to the current budget because of the lack of positions.
Madam Clerk, I need to interrupt you for a second. This is we asked for a department overview just for the operations. The budget will be at a later time, okay?
Okay, the overview would
Thank
be,
you.
in Macomb County, the Clerk Register of Deeds is the official keeper of the records, responsible for overseeing the receipts, storage, retrieval, and safeguarding of the public records, including the circuit court legal documents. That is the primary function of the clerk. In addition, we have different sub-departments, which is itemized in the budget. And as these sub-departments work together in unity to give service to the community is my primary function. Once we did this move from the circuit court vital records into a new building, where registered deeds were moved also into that new building, which is the Talmers building. There seems to be not enough space for everybody. The security was not in a timely manner. So with these items that caused havoc in my departments, we're still working through them to be successful. I'm just going to ask to have a monitor of the next move for the court. Because we could be moving people upstairs on the 5th and 6th floor, I might not have enough space to operate successfully and give proper service. That is something we lack in the planning stage when we move a department. And I am a large department. I have many hats, if you think about it. The clerk of the circuit court, the clerk for the commission, and I have responsibilities that are governed by statutory responsibilities. And I need to meet that requirement. So records need to be on site. And where we keep the records right now is an issue because they're not on site. They're in a storage area, 3 of them. And these administration records are very important to keep in a proper storage unit that preserves them to a maximum lifespan, which is forever. In theory, when you don't have a temperature room-controlled environment, paper will deteriorate, the film will deteriorate, and there are strict rules to follow when we design a public building for that purpose. We have to bridge that gap in the future because I look at it like a library. So those are things that's going to be an expense that's going to be coming up in my new budget. And the overview of just looking at the e-filing department to be added because the court has increased that service to many more attorneys in the community, which now the state will dictate in a very positive way a new software company that's going to be universal. So if our software company we use now is not the choice, we would be spending more money reinventing a way to overcome this investment. So these are the terms of called long-term goals that I would be looking at to work with the courts, work with the legislative body, work with the administrators and executive branch to meet our demands and to look at the facilities a second time around. Because if this building is not serving me a purpose right now, to have both vital records and register of deeds, I will not hesitate to come back and do another move and find a comfortable spot so that records go to register of deeds where they work and need them. Vital records will have all their records in the same building and redesign it. Right now, I was forced to move. I did it in compliance. It doesn't serve my needs as the clerk who is responsible for the records. And let's be fair, we need a building to provide that service of keeping records. We have lacked that strength in making that possible, so that isn't a goal that I think we all can agree to. And hopefully the workability to accommodate all the positions that's going to be the need for my new departments to meet the needs of our community for e-filing could be met in the next budget. Right now, I'm limited. I don't have a full staff to meet that demand. So it's like juggling situations where certain things can be done in a timely manner. I have to let something else go. It's been a vicious circle on how that operated from the previous clerk, and they always struggled with that. So there's changes that's going to be made for the positiveness of moving forward to meet my demands that I see coming soon.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
And I would like to introduce my deputy for Register of Deeds.
Hey, I'm Jackie Ryan, the Deputy Register of Deeds.
And as you know, we have two strong budget centers, and Register of Deeds is able to come forth and provide a strong income for the county. And it's been a very proud, successful department, and the employees from that department is exceptional, organized, a well group of people. Vital Records now coming into this atmosphere will also do what they do best, but I need to have a facility for records. So my goal is to separate the two departments and come up with a better plan and more efficiency for this service.
All right. Thank you for your presentation, Madam Clerk. We have, hold on one second. We have comments and questions from the commissioners. Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Clerk. We had heard from some commissioners that there was exceptionally long waits from citizens who have gone to the department to get a vital record, whether it's a birth certificate or death certificate. And when I had brought those to your attention, that I've been hearing those complaints, you invited me to your office, and you walked me through some of the challenges that you face in the new building to fulfill that constituent or citizen requests. You showed me how at the new building, if somebody comes in and wants a particular record, and that record is located in the basement of the court building, that how your employee then has to leave the Talbot building, walk across the street, get into the court building, get into the elevator, go into the basement, find the record and come back, and it could take extraordinary amount of time. Is that what you're referring to when you're talking about is that the primary concern that you're dealing with when you bring up the unsuitability of the current building situation? And if so, have you had an opportunity to work with facilities and see if that can somehow be rectified?
Well, the planning of the building that they gave me does not, it has beautiful space, but the space needs to consider file cabinets, considered a room to put these records in. And right now, one of the rooms, I have to devote it to Register of Deeds, because they have a lot of records that they need on site. And vital records would be on the other side of the room, but it's not enough space for the volumes of books that are downstairs in another storage location. We also have a storage location in the Clemens building. Those records also are part of vital records. So we go back a big, long history of how they were kept in that atmosphere. But I think if we took the building and divided the two departments, we could get a library. We could have it very designed well to put those records into that building to serve the function of each sub-departments. Yes, it's cumbersome. I have to go to the place where the records are kept now. I don't have access just to move everything because it wasn't designed that way when we moved. I was forced to move. I didn't want to move. I took the position. Why? It didn't happen. So I'm doing the best I can with the new location, trying to be creative on how to get the documents there in a timely manner and see if I can get more cooperation to get around these obstacles without causing too much delay in service.
Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Madam Clerk. I do have a couple questions. In your report, you had indicated that you're short some staff, and I do believe that one of the most essential things when you're the clerk is to have adequate staff. It's people helping people, and you are the front line to most county services. People come in and get their marriage licenses. People come in and check matters on their home with the deeds or mortgages, and people certainly come in and file lawsuits or check on statuses with cases. I'd like to ask you, where are you at with the hiring of a deputy clerk? That is a statutory position that you're afforded, and to date, I understand we don't have that position filled. Why?
I just had an interview, and the judge takes a week to decide. So I'm waiting for his decision. He was in trial, and because he's the only person that can approve it, I had to accommodate his schedule. So it is in progress. I'm going to be excited when he approves that person. If not, the process starts all over again.
How many people?
Interview
Okay.
and selecting another candidate.
Well, we've been absent a deputy clerk for some time, so how many people have you potentially tried to fill that position, just out of curiosity?
Well, the first one was a no. The second one was a no because of the amount of hours that person could work, and she was coming back from employment with the county. So there's legal issues that go through that process of the attorney making a decision regarding that appointment as far as hours concerned. So that hindered a very qualified person and an able-bodied person that would have helped tremendously at the time I needed that position filled. So technically, it's a gray area in the law that shouldn't prevent me, because most people who are at will, there's no hours set. The county gives you a badge, and you have a title. I don't clock in myself as the clerk of this position. So hours to me is dedicated. I surely will show you I stay late. I surely can tell you that I sometimes can extend my hours to late, which I'm learning to balance it more. But the essence of how human resources work, and you brought up a good process of time frame, to me is an important element. And when you don't have a time frame met within a week, 2 weeks, or a month, I consider that to be a broken system. So our time frame just in human resources, time you fill out in the software, NeoGov, is not the fastest friendly system. In fact, an incident happened where applicants put in their applicant, and Clerk and Register of Deeds has a slash. And when you apply your application, I use the word scope, it should detect candidates to fit the clerk's need, and vice versa for Register of Deeds. What happened, I had candidates when I did the interview for Register of Deeds that were perfect for the clerk's office. Perfect qualifications, worked in the attorney's office, had experience with other counties doing that type of work. And it was a shame that it got mixed up. I know machines don't think as well as people do, but I felt that they should have caught this error before we did the interview, separate the applicants to the right departments, and I should have reviewed them prior to contacting the interviewer. So those are suggestions I want to make to HR on the process that I feel is essence to a time frame.
Are you utilizing HR to help you in finding a deputy clerk? I mean, statutorily, the decision is yours, But what are you doing to avail yourself of human resources to help find qualified candidates? How are you finding these
That
candidates?
is the next step when I get turned down no with the next candidate.
Okay.
So we
you've
can
tried it
move to
without
it.
you've tried it without human resources for
Yes.
all these months. Okay. I have another question. It deals with the administrative coordinator of the court. Is that a union position?
That is being researched. I would say no. I have no evidence it is.
Okay.
The paperwork is very confusing because there's no clarity on it. I'm sure the attorneys could research it for me to give that, yes, it is. I say no.
Okay.
They'll say yes.
You realize that if it is a union position, we are bound by a labor contract. And if that position is not filled, or if that position is being done by non-union employees, that could potentially be a violation of labor contract. You understand that?
I do. That's why I'm doing the work on the budget.
Okay. Finally, this is something that I'm familiar with as being an attorney, the e-filing system. Now, I've personally filed an answer to a complaint, but I haven't seen it. It says that it went through, but I haven't seen that it's been accepted for at least 3 weeks. What is going on with the e-filing system? I understand that you could have up to 5 employees hired to help us keep up on the e-filing system. Is that true?
That, when I tried to make a proposal to even get part-time help, there was a lot of issues. I had to go to I called the emergency meeting on January 6th. That was with the executive board and all the department heads. They finally said, yes, we will give you part-time help, and in the budget, we will approve overtime. So that's how I started off January 6th. The e-filing was a major issue, as well as the mail. Because they have it designed before I came into office, a way that everybody does everything, and the supervisors have the job to coordinate and to decide who does what. And there's some jobs that are totally assigned to an individual because that's the way it is in that capacity. So in essence of me reviewing it, which I started to, I could see to make a change. And sometimes changes within that structure takes a little convincing because we're used to a habit or we're used to routine. And we have a self-made program called the dashboard. And it keeps track of scheduling. It keeps track of certain things that are being reviewed. And when e-filing becomes a statewide issue of compliance, we will have the biggest task right now to meet that need. And you see it. We're the 3rd largest county. We do have an increase in e-filing. We do get some from other counties that's forwarded to us because it's our jurisdiction. But we don't have enough manpower, in my opinion, and that was my review.
Well, again, I don't mean to, and it is your department.
Yes.
But you're not answering my question, okay? You have the ability to hire 5 people. You have the ability and the resources within the budget as it was planned before you became clerk to hire people for those positions so that we could keep up with e-filing. And in fact, right now, we are mandated by the state court administrator to comply with e-filing. And correct me if I'm wrong, if we fall behind, the state court administrator is going to appoint a receiver to take over that duty. So we have to keep up on that. And so my question, and I'd like to have it answered, is why have you not hired the people that you have within the budget to keep up on the e-filing?
If I could directly hire them in my authority capacity, that would be one quick way to do it. But there is a process that I'm working with HR. It's not the fastest as I described it. I don't own the software that they chose to do the e-filing. I have already started I call it a pilot program, to indicate a need of a full-time staff for e-filing. Because other counties have 7, I have 0 full-time. That made me question how it was designed by the previous administration. So I see there's weaknesses and strengths on what we have designed already that has to have a change. That's what I'm talking about, change. I can hire tomorrow, but if it's not in the budget and I don't have the position, I have to do an amendment. And this is where I call an emergency. What if I find another avenue to hire tomorrow, without the strings and attachments that goes through that process, not in a quickly timed manner, I'm open to suggestions, because I'm going to propose some directly going to the union and seeing how we can overcome this barrier.
Let me just say this, and I'll end, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm an attorney.
Yes.
The neat thing about this position is I can talk to attorneys that know how county government works. So when I have a question or I'm unconcerned or I'm unsure of something, I can always talk to county attorneys to give me good advice so that I can perform my job as a commissioner. As the county clerk, you have human resources and the county attorneys that can help you in making those decisions. My concern, and I understand it's a learning curve, and I understand that the e-filing program is something that you inherited, but the thing is, when it comes to court cases, they have to be timely. There's people's lives that depend on that, okay? And the thing is, if you have human resources and you have the attorneys available to help you in making hiring decisions, it needs to be done now. It can't be done sort of on the fly. It has to be done now so that our mandates from the state are met. Otherwise, we're going to have a big problem with the state court administrator coming in and taking over. And we don't want that. You don't want that.
I agree. That's why the time frame is such a slow process when you work with human resources. I just wish you would understand the process better, because when you understand how they file the application, the 2-week process, I can recall when I came into office, if I didn't know a procedure about how to get my own badge, I wouldn't have had a badge to start January 3rd. So I took it upon myself 2 weeks before to investigate and figure out how the system works. Sometimes it's friendly, sometimes it's not. Everybody has a way of working together, and I came into a situation that was not comfortable. My transition didn't go good, and you know that. I reached out to you. I also asked the board during the move to come and see the issues. I would have to say cooperation is needed on everybody's part, and I will do as much as I can to cooperate. I only can make good decisions, but if I don't get the cooperation to hire these employees and get it done in a timely manner, that's called restricting me. And the system, if you want to sit down with me, I'll show you how it's broken.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Karen.
Hello.
Couple of questions so I can understand it. How many, between the two departments, either the clerk or register of deeds, combined or individually, how many employees do you have, and how many vacancies do you have?
Okay. Jackie, do you have this sheet? Yes. I think you have the sheet. It was written on, yeah, I think it was 85. It's
Yeah,
on the
there's
22.
85. There's 85 employees.
Do you have that? I know, that's why. We wrote it down. Just a moment. I can't find it right now, Jackie.
85 is how many?
If I recall, it would be 85.
Okay. And just because I'm a little confused, I was only aware of the one position that needed to be filled when we talked in January. It was brought up that there's 5 positions that was just mentioned that needed to be filled. My question is that of those 85 positions, how many are not filled throughout all your departments?
I know in Register of Deeds.
Can I speak? I'll
Sure.
speak for you. Right now, she has 3 positions, because what's happened is between January now, people have left and moved to other departments. So technically, right now, she has 3 positions she needs to fill. In Register of Deeds, we have 2 that we're filling. But everybody advances up, so as soon as you fill, then you have 2 more open.
So then total, you have 5 positions that are need to be filled.
Right.
Okay. And then my question is that, and to help you in this process, we had talked about I believe it's called administrative assistant that did the budget for a majority of their responsibilities for you, the budget position. Is that one of the positions that still isn't filled?
Yes, and we brought up the fact, is it at will or is it union position? At will is easier to fill right away, but when it's a union position, you go through the process like I'm doing already
Okay.
with human
Okay,
resources.
my question is, Human Resources couldn't tell you if that was union or non-union?
I have not gotten an answer back to tell you.
Okay, and this is where I need to have an understanding. So you asked them about that position back in January, if it was union or non-union, and they never got back to you, HR didn't?
Paul was handling that decision at that time
Paul.
until could ask my deputy that I fired. And in that process, because we had no understanding at that time, and I can go back to my notes on what legal counsel had advised, which I disagreed, so we had a dispute going, and that has yet to be remained to be settled.
Okay, so again, I'm trying to bring this all in. So your former deputy was assisting you in this process.
Correct.
He's not here. And there was a argument as to,
Union or none,
and the argument
and it could
was-
be at will.
Okay, who were you arguing with? They never told you what it was?
Well, the paperwork was filed, the correspondence didn't come back, so now if you go through the process of a legal question, it can go to the courts for a direct answer. If,
Okay, I apologize, I'm confused again. So I'm saying you went to who that told you it was union or non-union? HR never responded to you?
I have not got an answer in writing, it's all something that you have to figure out if I had the time without the other responsibilities I do on a daily basis. So when I have an attorney to get the answer, yes, it's not answered of yet today.
All right. Did you ask Corporation Counsel if it was union or non-union?
Verbally, we talked about it. As far as getting an answer in the correspondence, I would have to go back and make sure. I'm just going to say it's questionable because I can't say yes or no without really giving you an honesty about if I remember it.
And if I can interrupt for a minute, was it a union or non-union position? And I apologize. She was one of the individuals that left prior to you taking office, and it was a union position. And I'm confused that you do you have access to the org chart, that when you came in, the org chart of the positions that you have, which ones are filled, which ones are union, which ones are non-union, which ones are supervisor, the org chart of your office?
We just, through my secretary, is doing an update on it, and she just gave me the update on that org chart. And according to the research, the attorney I have would disagree with it being a union position. So that's why I differ on that answer.
Okay, and you know what?
It's a
You got your
dispute.
business and what you got going on, and I respect it, but it's also, this is a position that is going to assist you on all your positions as far as your budget. And coming into budget season, coming into knowing if you need to spend money, if you don't need to spend money, where the funds can come from in your budget. And I told you, I think this is one of the most important positions in your department. And again, I'm not the clerk, you were elected the clerk. I'm
That's-
strongly suggesting to you to come to a head on this and get that position filled, because it's going to come down into budget season. We have deadlines we have to meet. And if you don't have that position filled, you're not able to get the work done to present.
Well taken, and I will consider everything you said, and that's a candidate. Again, we post it, and if it works like the system works, yes, we'll see how quickly I can get that position filled.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, I'll leave it at this, but now we're 6 months into it, your office, and you haven't had a decision of if that was the reason why, if it was union or non-union, 6 months.
Because if I choose to go forward with the legal question, which I may, and I'm sure everybody's going to be hearing about that decision, so that is something I will consider today to decide.
Okay, I'll leave it at that right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. Originally, I thought we were going to do a discussion on each section of your department and what they do, like the elections, the Register of Deeds. But, well, we didn't go that way. So since we are here, I do have a couple of questions related to what's been said. The first one is, and the first one's a statement. You do understand it didn't matter who got elected clerk. The clerk's office was going to move because that was set up, that was planned several years ago. That entire thing, a $65 million project, was planned out and voted on long before anybody even knew you were a candidate for the seat. You understand that, correct?
Correct, and that was the main reason I moved. But it doesn't make
Okay.
sense to move into the building without the records, number one.
Okay.
Number two, enough cubicles for all the employees to have as a station to work from, as well as their own stations to have their personal belongings in. That building alone serves a function for all registered
Okay,
deeds.
with all respect, I have a series of questions, and I only have a certain period of
Okay.
time. So I just kind of want to stick to them because I know you've talked about that at great length in the past. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I discuss. Okay, now with respect to the union and non-union positions, and I know I saw a document, a written document. Originally, I was going to meet with you, and the reason I didn't was that original memo of your intent to delete positions or individuals in positions that took place before January 1. So I just thought, wait a second, she's not in there yet. But since then, my understanding that is it has been made clear to you by everybody, by the county exec's office, by corporation counsel, that there are two at-will positions. The deputy clerk's position, and I'm not sure exactly the title, but the deputy clerk of the Register of Deeds. There are two at-will positions that you have the authority to fill without dealing with the whole union situation. Do you understand that?
That's correct.
Okay, so now that you understand that, we no longer need legal questions about each individual position and whether it's union or not. You can go on the assumption, if it's not one of those two, it's union. Do you understand that?
I do, and this is where we differ in the scope of an organization chart, which I will be presenting in the proper format to finance. Then it goes to human resources, and then it comes before the board.
But the thing is, the positions that are union versus the ones that are non-union, that was set in place and was set in stone before you got here.
That's correct.
So instead of at this point, you may attempt to change things in the future and you may or may not be successful. I don't know what your plan is. But now that we're here and we know what's union and we don't know and we know what's not union, I'm sorry, and you're being told that these positions need to be filled, we're no longer in a situation where we would ask, well, is it a union position? I disagree, because it's a set thing and we all know what's union and it not. Do you understand?
Yeah, but you're getting the positions that are union positions that will be filled. The essence of a new chart under my statutory choice of 5 counter clerks at will is something I would need the courts to exercise under my constitutional rights. This is where we differ on our philosophies on how to do an organization chart. Right now, they have a different title, a different position, and however it comes out in the decision, it's going to remain that dispute until I get a decision. And that's where I said I will be making that decisions to move forward on that issue.
All right, I'll let that go for now. And the records that are in storage that you indicate are not at the same location. Are those records that you can access copies of by computer?
Some are. I'm just learning some at the time they were handled to have restoration and available on that scanning that they did before I came in office, it wasn't done to satisfaction, so when they pull it up, the records are distorted and it needs to be fixed. So that process, I will have to revisit and spend more money to get that corrected.
Okay, and if you do that, with respect to the storage of the documents, I was a city council person before this position, and there's no way with the requirements by law of the actual paper copies that we have to have that you could store them at City Hall. You would fill the entire building with those documents. I don't know that we could find a building big enough for all the documents that were still required. It's kind of antiquated. I think the legislature needs to look at that. But given that you do have access on the computer, isn't it actually a bit of a safeguard to have the documents stored in a different location?
Well, the PDF that I provided the judge, and I will forward it to you, says how it should be designed and how I should keep my records. A controlled temperature room. Some records only last 10 years if you don't use a good company to store them on microfilm. So those have to be stored properly also. The ones we have in the administration building, as we visit that room, I would have to say that they might be already not able to bring up the information, and they might be lost because 23 years in that location, they're far beyond the 10-year rule. So as I can take them from that location and put them in another area to review, I don't have the space to do that. I'm confined to another move shortly in August for my court to be renovated. That's another big disruption that's going to have issues with how I can function just the court alone, so that the public can come in and be serviced, and the attorneys the same way, to be serviced on filing, whether it's strictly now going to be e-filing or a way you can walk into the office and drop off the paperwork and we process it.
Okay, and I just have three more. I'm as quickly as I can. I'm sorry. And my understanding, and I know that these meetings were set. There were meetings with the county exec's office. There were meetings with HR, and I know that there was even a meeting with the previous county clerk and her supervisors that you were supposed to go to help with the transition. And on several occasions, these were preset meetings. I believe to educate you and help you out, and you failed to show up to several of these meetings. Could you explain why that happened?
That meeting was in December. I was told by the boss, the clerk, it was no, no, no. I had no accessibility until January 3rd. During that time, Todd was very cordial, and we were working together. He finally said he had to go get permission to continue on, and it was denied. That meeting that was set up, I already was on vacation. There was an issue of compliance to, if I flew back to come to this meeting, I would have been restricted to participate, and I was told how I could participate. So I could not come back with that in mind. It didn't accomplish anything in the time frame, because if January 3rd was the deadline for me to take office, and there was no transition between November, December to January, with cooperation from the previous administration, that's something you as legislators could start looking at, to have rules or a procedure that I could respect when someone else takes the reign as the clerk and they're voted in by the people.
Okay, and when you say previous administration, you're also referring to HR and the county exec's office and corp counsel, because I know that there were attempts to meet with you by those individuals.
Yes, and we did meet.
Okay. Just real quick on the separation of documents, I know that we had an issue that we ended up in court with respect to a room, and that there's a, in your opinion, there's a need to keep the money that is brought into the clerk's office in a separate location from the documents. Am I correct in that's what your assessment is?
Well, there's an interpretation of how the building was designed to put safes. With two departments that take in money, in accounting purposes, we keep them in different safes. They're in the same room without a door to secure that facility, but we have two doors to lock and open on a daily basis.
Okay, and then my final question is, Commissioner Loretti asked you a question with respect to the number of deputy clerks you've attempted to hire, and I know that you had hired one successfully, and that one didn't last. And if you could just give a number instead of a process, how many deputy clerks have you attempted to hire that have been rejected by the chief judge?
I would say the first one, the second one, and I'm on the third.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Chair Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Clerk. So I just have some questions here, going back to the deputy clerk position that we're looking to fill. How's that job being accomplished right now? Who's handling that role as your chief deputy clerk? I mean, this has been, for a short time you had it filled, but a majority of your term you haven't had a chief deputy, which is a pretty important position.
It is a very important position. That's why I said I'm working very hard on doing that job.
So you're doing
I
them
have
both?
another deputy that's very talented and very reliable. She holds down a position in Register of Deeds, so that other department, Vital Records, would be under their jurisdiction. And you bring up a good analogy of, does that mean my deputy would have a position to actually help with Vital Records in that supervising capacity? I say yes, and the decision from the legal point of view was no. So these are obstacles that I have to deal with in a long-term goal that puts me in a handicapped position, because I can't have the chief deputy in Register of Deeds when I need that person in the court. So I have 3 buildings that I need chief deputies. I only have 2, so I'll be short one.
You only have 1 right now, right?
Right, but he would also have to go over to Register of Deeds because Vital Records is under the chief deputy jurisdiction.
But you understand these silly legal opinions are basically settled law that you just have to follow. So when you say there are obstacles that you have to work with, it's just the law that they can't cross over like that and supervise
But the
different
court
departments,
itself
right?
was designed where Vital Records was in the court building. Now that it was decided 4.5 years ago to move Vital Records into a new building, and if you think about the function of just Vital Records, how important it was, and the function it served the court with the cashiers we have in that department, they are left without any cashiers. So I had to make an important decision to provide that service and split my cashiers. I could not bring everybody over to Vital Records as designed.
Okay, well,
Because that's a function that is very important.
When I ask you a question, I understand you want to tell me more, but some of that stuff I don't understand exactly what you're saying or where we're going. But I'm wondering. I've heard rumor to the fact that that one of your chief deputies is handling functions of the other chief deputy that's vacant, and these little obstacles that you say are the law. So we know that that's the law now, right? So we are moving forward, at least right now. You have someone in to be hopefully appointed at this point.
Correct.
So you mentioned some other things that were very important. One of them was mail. Who opens the mail in your office?
The supervisors have designated that responsibility, and when I started to review
They've designated it to who?
Well, they have people that they chose on the dashboard who does that service.
Okay.
I came up with the idea that everybody should pitch in and open the mail. We were a difference of opinion on how to do this. Eventually, I want to have more cooperation on being flexible about meeting my deadline to open the mail on a daily basis.
Okay, that's fine. All All right, so we don't have that. That doesn't happen on a daily basis with you opening your mail. Let me get back to a little bit of Commissioner Leonetti. And these jobs that are open for e-filing, I mean, they're union positions. They've been open since day one that you've been here. Listen, I've only been here as short a time as you have as far as my position goes. We spoke with HR about a position that was open in our department, and within a matter of a month and a half, we had language that we had to propose. They explained exactly what we had to do. We proposed the language for the application. They posted it for us. We had a slew of people that responded, and we're in the process of now doing some interviewing. It was not a difficult process at all. I find it hard to believe that it was any more difficult on your side to find that process and work with it in your department. And I'll tell you that I am an attorney, and I speak with attorneys and better yet, their staff on a regular basis all through the county, and I am getting some interesting comments as to the length of time that they're waiting in line for different things, the e-filing like Commissioner Leonetti, and I just want to, I'd say, ask you to move forward with hiring these people. I mean, this is a very, very important part of what, you know, how business transpires in our county, and you know that. I mean, you're kind of almost creating a backlog by finding things to reasons. You've given a million reasons, but I'm just telling you, in my short time here and watching it before here, because I've been a commissioner before that, it seems to work seamlessly when we talk with HR about hiring somebody new. I can't believe for the second that it's that difficult to find people to fill this position. And
can I respond?
oh, yes, you may.
Okay.
Of course.
I found out I'm in Class B, and the court system is in Class A. We are treated differently. There's a process that I feel needs to be done in a time frame.
I don't know what that means.
As a hired authority, that the applicant in the program that I have to use in separating these applicants, there's a scope to follow. Class A has that function of scope. I do not have that function of scope. I will figure out how to get that and move up to Class A.
Okay, well, I don't have any idea what you just said.
I know.
But
it's very difficult until you become
it should not
involved.
be that difficult. That's why we have HR. They figure this stuff out, and you follow it, and everything goes right, and that's how it works. So that the scope and Class A and Class B, I didn't know we had all of that, but
that's right.
I'm sure they know that, and I'm sure they could help you. Is your office planning on printing the county directory this year?
Yes.
Where are we at with that? Because we're halfway through the year. Are we almost ready? I mean, are we almost done? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
And that is assigned to a staff person, to one of my senior secretaries.
Okay.
And my administrative secretary.
And then I read an article recently about Oakland County having a notification system. You know how we had a problem here in Macomb County where people could sell your property and somehow you would never know about it. And they have a system in Oakland County now that they're offering some alert system and things like that. Do we have anything like that here, or are you planning on anything like that here?
That has been done already by the previous clerk. It's just a letter that we process, and Register of Deeds has that notification to be sent out when we question any type of fraud.
Okay, so we have that here.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, that's it for right now. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Toko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, Madam Clerk. I just want to get back to the issue of the vacant budgeted positions. How many are there in your entire department, including the clerks, the courts, the Register of Deeds, elections?
Roughly there was 5. Then with new retirees, it's a moving up. Sometimes I already had one position filled. That's in the process of negotiating acceptance. So some things are in progress to have them fulfilled. Others, there's more interviews that are going to be scheduled, and the applicants are going to be giving more
But Madam Clerk, what's the
processing.
number? What's the number of vacant positions?
Right now, I would say 5.
And where are those, what departments in the clerk's office are they? Are they the court, are they the Register of Deeds? Where are these 5 positions?
In the position of the clerk, you're talking about the admin coordinator position, which is 1. We do have the file room, which we moved everybody up. One of the JCCs moved over to Human Resources, so that opened up another position. So as they're filled with the current people that move up, that gives me, everybody in the file room needs to be, at this point, considered to be hired, because that's the first step we do.
So 3.
So everybody moves up. Once that's moved up, then I get the green light to start.
Okay. And is there anybody from HR here that could confirm, are there 5 positions that are vacant?
Good afternoon. We have 2 positions in Register of Deeds. The administrative coordinator position in the clerk's office, we have 3, we believe, are entry level in the court, 2 computer maintenance positions due to some recent promotions, 1 in vital records, CMC, 2 Register of Deeds, again, CMCs, and a typist clerk, 1, 2 in the courts. So a total of 11.
And the reason it increased because of the type of move, I went through increasing the need for a
But Madam
cashier.
Clerk, when I'm asking you how many there are, and you're telling me 5.
There was 5, but with the new changes of retirement for 2 people that left, I had JCCs that's recently left, so that's why the increase, as she has it, is there. But I would say only 5 because that's what I'm working on right now. All of them are not posted.
Okay, well,
So
just because
part
you're
of
not
it
working
is
on it doesn't mean
doing
that those
what Human
vacancies don't
Resources
exist.
do is to schedule these positions and put them on NeoGov, which is a process.
Okay, but Madam Clerk, just because you're not working on them doesn't mean that they don't exist. And
They
it doesn't
do
mean that the work
exist
is not getting done.
because,
Who's doing the work of the 11 people where you have vacancies?
okay, because the program has to be used and you have a secretary that is the hiring manager, and this is part of her job, so I can't answer
Madam
for
Clerk,
this
Madam Clerk, could you
delinquent.
just
But
answer?
I'm just saying, there's a process of who does what.
Okay, I'm not
If
asking about
I can do it
process.
myself, it would definitely get done.
I'm not asking about process. I'm asking you who is doing the work, who is servicing the community, who's servicing
That's
our
my job.
That's your job, but we have 11
And I
vacancies.
designate people to help do these tasks.
Who
And
is,
that's sometimes an issue within certain parameters of giving good directions and cooperation.
who's doing the work for the 11
Okay.
absent people?
Right now, it's in progress. The progress means I have a hired manager, the administrative secretary to work with. She does certain things in NeoGov. I do the rest. Once the applicant puts in the application, it goes through a process. It's screened, it's brought back to me, and then there's 6 or 8 people, so that's the process. I have supervisors that could serve to help do the interviews with this process, but because of the extended time frame that I had to work under, that is something I couldn't do right away because I was ordered to move. When you're ordered to move, you do what you have to do, and that was a big task.
The presentation that you've given us today is very different than the presentations that I've received in the 11 years that I've been here. Typically what happens is we get a presentation on what the goals are for the department, where the department's going, what the department's done, what the achievements are have gone on in this past year. All I'm really hearing is a lot of blame placing that HR hasn't done what they need to do and that you're dissatisfied with the move. We need to move past that. We need to have these 11
I am moving
positions.
past that. Like I said, there is a process that you have to use a system, a software system.
Point of
that
order,
is-
Mr. Chairman.
Is what it
Maybe
is.
maybe we can.
You're interrupting the speaker. You weren't even finished speaking, and the clerk is interrupting before the question's even spoken. You know, you have to show some decorum. People are asking a question, and then you interrupt them. It's a little hard to follow you to begin with, much less interrupting questions that are being asked of you. So I'd ask you, Mr. Chairman, to please enforce the rules of order on this board.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Commissioner Ron.
Commissioner.
Maybe we could hear from HR as to what the status is on filling these positions. Have there been requests that these positions be filled, and is there a lack of cooperation from HR?
Hello again. No, I don't believe there's a lack of cooperation. We fill over 400 positions every year, and as to Commissioner Smith, Chair Smith noted, the process does work. We believe there's 11 open positions at this time. The process has been very challenging. The changeover from the prior clerk to Ms. Spranger, County Clerk Spranger, has definitely been challenging. There is no Class A or Class B. The county is divided into two teams, Team A and Team B. Carlin Semlo, my peer, has 15 departments, and I have close to 15 departments. Throughout those departments, we deal with everything from A to Z HR, including recruitment, labor relations, negotiations. We process the county clerk, Register of Deeds positions just like any others.
Where is the disconnect? Where are we? What's happening? What's the problem?
There seems to be, Ms. Spranger and I spoke this morning again, there seems to be just a disconnect of Ms. Spranger understanding the process. There are certain things we can and cannot do. We work in a unionized environment. When there's a promotional opportunity, the senior employee in that union gets that opportunity. No question. If it's a lateral move, that lateral employee, the person who's interested in a lateral move, doesn't get it over a promotional opportunity. That is how we have been functioning for years I've only been here 6 years, and I understood that within 30 days. The contracts speak clearly and loudly to who gets opportunities. The Register of Deeds and the county clerk side, over the years, Carmela Sabal, when she had that position, oftentimes would switch, allowing employees to go to department, but that was agreed upon between the county clerk and those employees. Okay, we can go back to doing those things, but the lines of communications definitely need to improve. The process is not complicated. It is very clear-cut. These are entry-level positions. We screen based on a very minimum qualifications. I mean, it's high school, GED, and I think 2 years of some type of administrative experience. So these entry-level positions, we definitely get close to 200 to 300 candidates that we screen.
So with our budget, we have kind of scaled down the number of employees that we have. So we have 11 vacant positions. That either means, one, our employees that are there are doing more than their fair share, or two, the work's not getting done. Which is it?
I can't.
It's probably the combination. When I walked into office, there was 8 open positions, and Paul, during his time, we did get some filled. I was not part of that process or how the interviewing worked. I was left out of the loop. That was one of my other concerns I had, having a deputy that took the sole responsibility of that responsibility, which should be joint between me and the deputy. As I move on, in March, I only have April to work up to speed and to work with HR on that process. And that process can be improved if we just did some overtone and overviewing on how I have to struggle to really hire somebody that's in a different application of coming to me when I am interviewing the Register of Deeds applicants. And they were perfect applicants for the clerk's office to hire because of the experience. That scope puts a delay because there's no function on this NeoGov to switch it around in a timely manner to put the right applicants to the needs of the clerk's office for that function. The Register of Deeds has its own deputy and has a requirement of a data processing. And usually if you have real estate background, those are things we look for and consider as an applicant. But
Okay,
sometimes the experience of your...
Let me just interrupt you for one moment.
Point of information.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Carabelli.
Madam Clerk, I apologize if I asked the question wrong.
Okay,
I truly am, but I am now befuddled.
okay.
I asked you how many employees you had, and you had your
Commissioner
deputy come up.
Carabelli. What,
Let me finish. And you said point blank that there was 5 employees openings that you had that were not filled. Now I'm hearing that there's 11. The information I need, my point of information is how many employee positions are not filled in the clerk's office?
The information I got from my administration secretary, I can't say why I did not come up with 11, but I didn't do the paperwork, but I will surely get an answer.
If I could just have just a quick minute, and I'll move off of the employees, because it sounds like HR is willing to work with you, and I would beg you to work with HR to get these positions filled. So I'm going to move off of that for right now, but in your presentation, you talked about an attorney that I have. And a review of the budget doesn't show that you have a personal attorney. Who is this attorney that you have that you're referencing, and who's paying for this person?
I am.
So
And
that's-
you already was introduced to him at the board.
Okay, so that's coming out of your personal finances?
Yes.
And not out of the county money?
Correct.
Okay,
Because I have 0 in the line item.
correct. That's correct. And I looked at that and noticed that. And then in your presentation, you also referenced a pilot program that you're working on, which is a full-time e-filing pilot program. Is that a new program that you've implemented in your department? And what's that all about?
I decided that in order to measure if I had one e-filing person to show that 8 hours of work makes a difference, and that was my goal. So I decided on a candidate to do this and worked it out with my deputy, Jackie Ryan, and came to a conclusion that I needed to measure that workload. In the software that we have that I don't own, it's owned by the court, they are going to update it to where the bundles that are given to the e-filers will be able to be broken down and measure the amount of workload that each bundle carries. Some are
Okay.
6 minutes, some are a half hour, some take 2 hours.
That's my question. You referenced talking to your deputy clerk from the Register of Deeds about an e-filing program that goes on in the clerk, and that's been my concern. Is your e-filing program being implemented at the Register of Deeds, or is it being implemented?
No, we didn't have the space in the office when they closed down the section where I'm in the court. All the other areas are used in the court. So I had to use the space in Register of Deeds to set up the computer with the support and help of the judge and implement a way to measure that it makes a difference if I have some staff that is not in my budget currently for e-filing
So you took
to meet that need that comes in on a daily basis.
So you
And
took a
the
clerk
weekends,
position?
we are up on the amount for Monday that increases to over 300.
Okay, so you took a court clerk and moved that person to the Register of Deeds, and then they're doing the court e-filing at the Register of Deeds?
Right now, I had stations set up, and we had the building in the court because of the water. So I had to use my skills to have the computers set up for at least 8 people to help with the load, because by the weekend, when we have a holiday, the increase goes up far greater than you ever expect. And that's been a repeat redundantly since 2016 until currently. So if I review the facts of that figure alone, you'll see a trend of how a need is during that critical time, and how a new change of having 2 or possibly 4 full-time e-filers should be a benefit to what I need to accomplish in my ability to succeed in the service
So
and to meet the demands that the court will be facing. We have 2 more new judges, and I'm sure that workload is going to be increasing with the e-filing.
So is that taking place in the Register of Deeds or in the court clerk's office where it should be? Where is that taking place?
I wish I could bring it into the court system, but I don't have the space, and they're going to be moving everybody in August.
So it is being handled at the Register of Deeds, and I don't believe that that's appropriate.
That's a decision I had to make for the availability of the service of that computer to be set up somewhere. And if I don't have space in the court building, I don't have space. So I don't have other offices in other buildings yet to accommodate that need. I don't have the ability upstairs yet to accommodate that need.
I'll move on and let somebody else speak. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
All right, next is Commissioner Sauger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to ask you, Karen, during the month of January through May, you and one of your assistants, or whatever her title was, taking video of all of our meetings. I'd like to know what happened to those videos.
I'm not recalling your incident. Can you give more details?
You what?
I'm not understanding the time of when, who, how. You're talking about an incident. Give me more details so I can recall what you're talking about.
It was our meetings right here. She worked for you, and she would stand there, and she'd stand there, and stand there, and taking videos of all of our meetings.
Who was that person?
I'm trying to think. You fired her, so I'm trying to think of what her name is. Maybe somebody could help me out. Erin Stahl. Okay, Erin Stahl. She took videos of all of our meetings, and I'd like to know what happened to those videos.
I'm sure under the Open Meetings Act, anybody can come in and videotape. And I did not hire her or tell her what to do. These are things she's done on her own accord. I'm not responsible for what she does at an open meeting. Only if it's a meeting that I can set up. At what time and what day?
Madam Clerk, please.
I mean, I'm trying to remember specifically the day.
Madam
because
Clerk, please direct your answers to Commissioner Sauger,
okay,
please. Thank
Mr.
you.
Sauger.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's one question out of my way.
Because you gave me the day of January to May.
Our board meetings, when you would be here at our
board meetings follow the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, next meeting, I'll have our secretary find out what dates, and there's a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
And she was here. I'm just trying to curious what happened to those, what the purpose of them were. But if you don't know.
If she took them, that's her
worked for you.
responsibility. She's my deputy to do deputy's responsibilities at an open meeting. If that's her wish to videotape, that's what she's able to do, then she does it. If that's her choice. Now, I did not give her any instructions, so I can't tell you that was me that told her to do that, okay? So
Okay,
I'm setting the record straight.
We don't have to stay too long, because I know what was going on, as many of the members of the board do. My other problem is all these problems that you've had since you've been on and explaining to us, none of these problems seem to have existed during the prior administration. I mean, they worked real well somehow, but nobody had this many problems. Of all the department heads we've had, all the elected officials, if you combine them over all the 24 years I've been on, nobody had these many problems in this short period of time. Can you tell me why that's going on?
I'm only going to guess. I don't know how she ran the office, but if you listen well, sometimes the employee will tell you, like we discussed, there's a way to move an employee. I tried. I wasn't successful. There's other ways to move on and be more cooperative, and I think HR and me has to sit down and come to a reasonableness on the time frame that I'm restricted to because of the way it's structured. I only could say with the A and B classification, the way she explained it is supposed to be equal. I'm telling you my experience, it has not. I'm sharing my viewpoint and that's all I can do. But if there's another way to hire people directly in a time frame that's reasonable, because you can look at January to now, it's not reasonable. So either something's wrong with the process that I have to go through, or I'm not learning it fast enough, because I had 2 months of no computer that delayed it. I'm just giving you a fact. And now that I had to move, that's another fact of time. So if you take those weeks away, you can take a look at my time frame to get things done in a timely manner with cooperation of everybody. And that means we have to communicate more effectively. And I'll take my responsibility to do that.
I think you said the word "we've got to sit down," but I don't think anybody's sitting down very good on this thing, because they keep mounting week after week after week. Something's going on. And the other problem I got, do you remember the number 7520?
7520, is that in the budget?
Those numbers, do they reflect anything in your memory?
You can help me out a little
Okay, I'll
bit,
give it
because
to
they're
you.
numbers.
That's your address where you're supposed to be living.
7 what?
7520.
Okay.
That's your address, in case you want to know.
Now, that's a complete way to communicate, because when you give me those numbers, I can think of many things what that number could mean.
You can give me my
So,
number if I'm on the golf course, and I'll tell you
Commissioner-
what they are.
If
So
you
Commissioner
asked
Sauger.
me a question of my address number, I could have told you very simply.
Okay, I've had enough right now. Thank you very much. Good luck to you.
Commissioner Duje.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'm not going to beat up, I'm not going to go down the road about, E-File has 5 hires that you're supposed to get, and then there's more hires, and fine and dandy. But there's a number of things that have been said here. One, you say you need room for money, you need some way of hiding the money, or not hiding it, but safeguarding the money that comes in, and so on and so forth. Have you talked to the treasurer?
Yes, we have.
And is the
what-
treasurer helping you?
Yes. In fact, it was instrumental to find out how I have a core for the vital records. They have to have their money in at a certain time, and it has to be received in that manner. Instead of walking it over in public, the sheriff has worked it out with us to come and pick it up. I also came up with a creative way to say, once they receive and document that amount, that particular invoice could be scanned in and sent to finance for the record-keeping purpose.
Okay, that's perfect. So that's off the table. We don't
Thank
have to
you.
worry about about you safeguarding any monies that are coming into the clerk's office.
No, it's don't need the door.
Oh, okay. Next, paper records, and then you referenced microfilm. I didn't know microfilm was still available.
We have those records downstairs in the basement.
Okay, may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Get 1 or 2 people, out of the 11 that are open, and have somebody start scanning the crap out of everything. And put it into a computer and be done with it. We had somebody here on the floor scanning all of our information. And I don't know which department it was from or anything else, but I'm sure you could save a whole lot of room and a whole lot of grief by scanning all this stuff in.
That's
But
a-
as soon as
that's a
somebody
good-
Point of
says,
information.
Yeah.
Mr. Commissioner Duje, that has been a process, been going with the previous clerk for some time, and so it's
well,
not
yeah,
something
but
new to the
my
department.
understanding is we need a building like the old county building to store all this paperwork.
Some of the records have to be stored that way. That's just,
We
way
can't
it
put
is.
it on a computer.
yes, there are records we can.
I think that most all records
We can
can
take
be.
inventory.
Okay, now, Macomb County is a relatively large county, and we have a lot of people, and we have a lot of responsibilities in Macomb County. This is not a mom-and-pop store with 3 people in it selling candy bars to somebody walking through the door. We have a lot of responsibility, and you're an integral part in all this. You've been doing this for 6 months. And you want to know something? There's a whole lot of room for improvement. And I don't want to hear about processes. I don't want to hear about the rest of it. It doesn't get the job done.
That's right. So if I can do my job, I'll do it.
Well, you know what? You've got some very, very good people in a variety of departments and even in your department that know what the heck they're doing. And may I suggest you start working with them as opposed to asking them about processes and so on and so forth. That's all I have to say on that. Now, one last question. What renovations are you talking about later on this year? You said some sort of renovations. What are you
My office
renovating?
directly in the court. There is going to be another move, and they haven't finished. When they moved out vital records, you could come to the court and see where my office is, and you'll see it's vacant. They will be moving everybody else out during August. If they keep that date, we might have to wait another 30 days because of the way it's designed to where to put everybody so I'm up, running, and I'm functional. That's the issue here. Where do I go? Where's the space? Where are the records going to go from one room, move those records that are there currently over to another facility? That all has to be worked out, and that's the part of the administration with Hackle and his deputy, Delden. Then it goes through a process of where more space is in order to fill the rooms that I have already for storage. So if they have to move things around, I just like to get it organized, be ahead of the game, plan it better, because I did plan it on March 27th to where I wanted vital records to go to another building instead of the building it was in. I again didn't get respected on that decision. It was overruled because of a plan that was previously put into effect that, in my opinion, is outdated. It didn't serve the purpose of what it was designed for. It should have been revisited, and I could have saved a lot more money on this move and be very responsible to where the operation should be. But who is the county clerk? That's the key here. How much power do I have to talk to my equal, the executive branch? We're supposed to be equal, but that's here or there. I'm working with the deputy. I have to move. There's another move coming up. It's a big move.
Thank you, Madam
It's
Clerk.
very critical.
We understand.
Mr. Chairman, the decorum does not allow me to say where all this should go. That being said, thank you very much for time.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Clerk. Thanks for coming. I guess I'm just going to make some general statements. You've heard the questions. You know the commissioner's concerns. I guess the bottom line is we all want to be on the same page and as quickly as possible. I think that's the name of the game here, and it isn't a game. There are specific questions that were asked of you, and to the best of your ability, I'm sure that you answered them, again, to the best of your ability.
That's
but
correct.
not to the satisfaction of this particular board, which very shortly is going to be setting up a budget for you. And hopefully it'll be enough to satisfy your needs. And I guess the quicker that you put these needs of yours in order, the better position we're going to be in to satisfy that budget. And Mr. Dujay, don't be so subtle next time. But I think we all want to get to the same place at the same time, and it's kind of hard when one's pulling and one's pushing. It doesn't work that way. So having heard from the commissioners, and we're the one that set your budget, I guess, again, as I said, the sooner you get moving on this, the better off we're all going to be, and we're going to have you before us again, and hopefully we'll have some very specific answers. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. And to give you an answer to what you just demonstrated, when I get information, there's a format. And in the format, you follow what they ask you, and I provide details, figures. I collect the data from the people in my sub-departments that makes this possible. One person gathers it, okay? Usually it takes a team. That's where we're working with now, is a team, because one person, like myself, can demonstrate. You can't do it all. So if the process needs to be fixed, if the process needs to be more complementary, there's more communications, there's more outreach, that's what I'm all about as a new elected clerk. I have statutory responsibilities to fulfill. That's my obligation. I'm the keeper of the records. I only ask that I have a building. When you put somebody in that building, the records come with it. That's a done deal. That's where I'm at, and how to be more effective in the way we operate these departments. Putting another department into the area of registered deeds cuts back that flow work. We have an issue that will be coming before the board if we don't resolve it. I've asked you to come and see what the issues are. I still will come to that point to communicate effectively. Come see what I'm talking about. Visually, it's an impact. Writing it or just filling in the numbers is not accountable for the other part of actual being true. So when we calculate, we do it very meticulously. I have 2 budget centers. I have so much you allotted me before I came into office. If that was not enough to meet my new needs, then I need to amend it, and this will be done in a timely manner for this upcoming budget.
All right, next on the second round, we have Chair Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple questions. They should be fast because I can group them all into one. Part of your statutory duties are signing the minutes of our full board meetings and also resolutions that we pass. And I have resolution from 3 of 17 that you stated you would not sign. A resolution from 5 of 17, the May of 17, you declined to sign. And the minutes from our full board meetings on 2/9, 3/16, 4/13, 4/27, 5/18, you have yet to sign. This is part of your duties. This isn't an option. This is what you're statutorily obligated to do. Can you explain why you're not doing signing these meetings
Usually
minutes?
the secretary has a role in making this happen and print out the agendas and keep a flow within my office. Because of the way it's designed now, we don't have that capability between me and her. And I'm working on it to get that
So you're saying you're not
resolved.
aware of that you haven't signed all these? Because one of them,
Because some of the
my chief of staff said
paperwork-
you verbally declined to sign one of them, so you at
That
least
was
knew.
the agreement between the selection of an attorney, and that language of that agreement
You don't agree with.
I did not agree
That's
with.
not
So
your, that's
I
not your job is
decided
to agree or
to
disagree.
take it under
Your
advisement.
statutory right, your statutory
I
obligation
took it
is to
under
sign.
advisement.
You don't get to take them under advisement. You have to sign the minutes. Now,
That was a
I'm gonna tell you right now,
resolution.
so we don't have to go through
And
your
I did
secretary.
sign most,
So we don't have to go through your secretary. I will hand you this. The minutes from 2/9, 3/16, 4/13, 4/27, 5/18, virtually almost every full board meeting that we've had, you've not signed. So you're telling me you're not aware that those were your duties to sign, and you're
I'm
blaming it on
aware,
your
but
secretary.
I didn't take the minutes. I was
You
part
know the
of
meetings
coming
are there.
to the session here. And if I'm the clerk of the commission, we will go down the avenue to find out who takes the minutes, how they should be processed. And if the board sync wins, then in reality, stamp it with my name.
Law states you sign these.
Well,
you
then I
sign
will
these.
sign them when I take the board minutes and I act in my
That's not your,
capacity
that's
as
not in your
commissioner.
statutory duties.
Well,
Your
then I
duties
will
is to
sign
do this.
them because John's here to advise me.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Clerk, I think what Commissioner Duge said, Commissioner Romano said, some of the questions that Commissioner Toko had. Look, some of your arguments are counterproductive. I'm sympathetic to the fact that you had to move. Nobody likes moving their offices. I completely understand that. But if you're in a position where you have to move, it would seem you would want to have as many employees as you could to help you in that transition. So to sit here and have 11 employees short of what's essential for your functioning position, it makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense for you to sit there and say, on one hand, I had to move, I can't get things done, it's very difficult, yet you're not hiring 11 people to fulfill those positions. This is not a game. And let me finish.
Okay.
You understand, you started off your opening here by saying that you have very, very vital function of government. You are the front line, as I indicated. People's marriage license, people who have to go to court, people, at the one time it was gun permits, I don't think it is anymore, okay? But you have an important function, and it's not the time and place to sit there and decide if a position is union or not, when it's clearly union. It's not the time and place to say, I'm trying to maybe save the taxpayers some money because I don't want to hire 11 people even though I'm forced to move all over the place. That's not what you need to do. Your first and most important function is to maintain a level of service so that our citizens are getting what they need. That's what we're all paid to do. And you are failing at that completely.
When a court order comes before you to move, you don't move in one day. There's planning to pack the records and to take what is needed, absolutely needed. The rest was left. If you want to come through and see what we did in a timely manner, you're welcome.
Hold on, let me just finish. I don't mean to interrupt
I just need to make some clarity on a viewpoint. And this is a viewpoint. In order to be functional in a new building, if I'm the record keeper, again, I made it very clear, records should come with the deal. Not just computers and the people, and I have to run to different areas of a building to get the records that are difficult to get with and send someone to do it. I had to leave 2 cashiers for the court. Vital records was a big part of how the court operated, and those people were needed. To take me away and take all the people to go to that location did not make sense. That's what's missing in the element of planning, not just the building for people to go in, and the computers and the tools. It also means I need the records. So the record keeping system is not up to standard. I have a big job to bring it up to standard and to say in a very positive way, it can be done. And cooperation is the key word here. And what you do as a legislative body can be more supportive and more open to an outreach to make this happen. That's all I'm going to ask. Thank you.
Let me just address your answer. And again, I didn't know if I even asked you a question. I might have made a statement, so I apologize with that. But again, let's take a look at what you just said with your statement. I agree with you. You had to move. You had to bring records over. Now it sounds like somebody has to run between 2 buildings.
Yeah,
okay,
that's what we're doing.
But wouldn't it make sense to hire more employees to satisfy that? That's where I'm not understanding what you're doing here. On the one hand, you say, yes, it's very difficult for me to perform my functions because I'm being moved all over the place. And on the other hand, and then you're saying I'm short people to run between buildings. You have 11 employees that you can fill. When you ask us as a legislative body, what can we do to cooperate? We've budgeted for you to have those 11 employees. Fill the positions. Fill the positions so that the services can be met. We're not getting an answer to that question. Human Resources came up here and told you, look, you have 11 positions. These can be filled. Some of these are union. Some of these are entry-level positions. Why are they not being filled? Why?
Well, let's do a full investigation, and I'll tell you my story, and she can tell you yours. The point is very clear. There is a process, and I just made a statement about the process. It's not effective in a timely manner. That's true.
Madam Clerk, we've heard this answer 5. Madam Clerk, we've heard this answer multiple times. Commissioner Leonetti, are you finished with your questioning?
I never really got an answer, but I guess I'm finished with my questioning. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, and I agree with you, Chair. I heard you say something I need some clarity on. did you indicate that I understand what your position is on the minutes. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it. But did you indicate that you didn't sign one of our resolutions because you disagreed with it?
The resolution was infringing on my right as a personal person, number one. Number two, as the clerk for legal counsel. And what the restrictions were, in my opinion, if I signed it, was I held to it. That's where the independent counsel comes in.
Okay.
Because the issue comes down to, how do you hold me accountable for a signature on a resolution? If it just means it's not worth what it says and it's just to sign my name, but it was related to me, it had to deal with a function that I had to agree with, and I wasn't going to agree with the terms in that resolution.
Okay.
As a person first. Second, I have every right to get it reviewed by an attorney, and that's where I was at with that resolution.
Okay, so just very simply, because I don't know if you noticed, the chairs are starting to empty, so I want to get to some very, if you disagree with a resolution that we vote on, you will not, as the clerk, sign that resolution. Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that when legal counsel had a dispute on what the intention was, and the clear of it, I had to, if it deals with me and it held me accountable to what I'm agreeing to, it said an acknowledgement in the first letter to it. And that's where we had a stuck point in this disagreement.
All right, so let's
now,
just
the
clear up
attorney
that
you
particular.
chose for me.
See, we're going into the 5-minute answers, and we don't really need that. I'm asking a specific
I'm
question.
just telling you.
So now that I know that you haven't signed one resolution, I'm just asking you a general question, and it doesn't require
an explanation.
A history. It just is a yes or no question. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but it's a concept.
We are in agreement
You still
now.
I haven't even asked the question yet, and here is the yes or no question. Just put that particular resolution out of your mind, and yes or no. If the Board of Commissioners votes on a resolution and passes it, and you disagree with that resolution, is it your opinion that you do not have to sign it as the clerk?
To answer that question is a Jeopardy question, and the reason I'm not going to answer it, I'm entitled to take it under advisement, and John just said the key words. We were to talk afterwards, and we can discuss it.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. And just one more thing, because I know that this wasn't supposed to, a lot of, I think frustration has spilled over into this meeting, and I'm really sorry that's occurred. I think this was originally supposed to just be an overview. We've done that with every department, and you are no different. But my question is, you've made several references to losing on your position, both in court, and I think you were also referencing some union things, I'm not sure, but the move and different things that you wanted to do, you've said you've lost. And during this meeting, you've made several references regarding legal decisions with regard to signing our minutes, continued legal positions with regard to unions, more legal positions with regard to office space and needing determinations. And when you suggest needing determination, that usually means going to court. If you've not been successful in any of these so far, rather than spend all this money in legal disputes with other departments of the county that you are working in, isn't it possible that maybe you're the one that is not correct and that maybe challenging everything in a legal way and costing the county a lot of money may not be the right thing, and if you're losing over and over again, maybe you could possibly reassess that way of handling things?
This is so premature right now because I'm going to put the issues straightforward. I run the department. I choose to be different. I am all about accountability, transparency, and even to hold the leadership responsible not to interfere with this department and not to make the decision that's partly my responsibility. That's where we separate the powers. This is where the office itself should not have somebody coming in and doing what they do best, interfering. That's all I can say at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you for coming in. Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you. Great questions. I hope I answered it to the best of my ability, which I did. And I'm sure we have difference of opinions, but that's always what it's going to be, because good government is what it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have no other speakers. There's a motion on the floor. Commissioners, vote on your iPads to receive and file.